Thank you, Paul. I think the major point that's been made is that we want to make today is that county governments are paying and footing the bill for a lot of the programs because of federal policies, and we think that we need to restore this partnership and share in the burden of providing services to undocumented immigrants. So that's sort of the main point, and part of the reason that we strongly support a comprehensive immigration reform is just that. We think it's fair, number one, but number two, it does have a huge impact on county programs. So with that, let's open it up to questions or comments.
So has there been any conversation about what the share or how it would work for counties to take a piece of the whatever money came down to states? Because now with the healthcare reform debate, obviously there's going to be a price tag on immigrants' heads in terms of the healthcare reform provisions. Sorry, and we figured that the adult English language piece is also big. So just we're trying to figure out how that might interact with what the state interest might be.
You know, counties run literacy programs and work with the state and with the obviously with the school systems to provide those programs. I'm not sure how that money would come down. Nothing that I've seen, no.
There is a major difference in relation to the question that Margie asked about funding. And both the Kyle Kennedy bill and the previous McCain-Kennedy, or Kennedy-Kyle McCain-Kennedy, had an amendment in it, sponsored by Senator Cornyn of Texas, that would have created a state and local impact assistance program that was actually funded through the bill, which is unusual. It was authorized and funded. It also would have been protected from future cuts by appropriators, because that is a problem that we had with programs in the past. The 1986 bill had a program, but it was the funding was cut over a number of years. And that program would have gone to healthcare and education. And it was actually, the formula was a very simple formula based on the number of foreign-born. 80% would have been based on the number of foreign-born in the state, and an additional 20% for those high-growth states. And we would have preferred a little bit more for locals, but it was, I believe, 70% state, 30% local governments, and the states could also then decide what to do with their 70%. My side was for education and for healthcare. The current bill, I believe, has, on other areas, it has the CIR bill has fewer visas than the previous bills had. It also, it has a path to legalization, but it doesn't have what was called the touchback, which people would have had to go somewhere else and come back. I called it the hokey pokey. It doesn't have that, which the Kyle bill had. And it does have a grant program for civics, which I think the Kyle bill had as well. It does eliminate the 287G program, which previous bills had not done. And I don't remember what else it has, but it has a lot of similarities, but in some ways it's narrower than previous bills, I think, in response to the current economic dynamic, probably. Is that?
I would just add a little bit. I was going, as you touched actually some of the things I'm going to say, the criteria for earned legalization is set out a little clearer in comparison to the last bill. It does call for, in addition to paying a fine of a substantial amount, it calls for learning English, civics, American basic history, and to show that a person of good moral character, and all sorts of requirements that, frankly, as it's spelled out, all this will subject to debate. Well, we have to analyze one by one, and it's okay, to do that and hammer out the best decision, the best way to do it. As it's presently outlined, I mean, it's going to be very tough for someone to go through the system, and the questions that are asked, they're going to be asked of the individuals, are going to be tough. And I got to tell you, some of these questions, many people in this room might not be able to answer about history of American politics and all kinds of the Constitution, all this other stuff, even though you are experts on the subject. I mean, I've been looking at some of the tests that they give for citizenship. Some of those questions are pretty tough. But in any event, that's one of the most significant changes or contrasts for the old one that establishes the criteria, and it does call for persons to the back of the line, as the expression people say, because remember, this is earned legalization. And I know that other people like to use the A word in order to dilute or take the antagonistic approach or and so on. That's not what we're talking about. We're clearly talking about people need to earn their legalization, and I think that both sides of the aisle can debate it, but that's what the proposal calls for.
Yes, and it also requires fingerprint and background checks and all of those. Right. And it has a temporary worker program that is smaller than previous ones, I believe. And it includes the Ag Jobs bill, which previous bills did as well. Yeah.
Just so you know, for those of you who don't know Marlene, this is Marlene Sanz. She's our expert on immigration, human and other social service programs at NACo in our Legislative Affairs Department. So if you have other questions later on, you can certainly contact her.
Thank you for the expert part.
I just want to raise the issue that there are a lot of Hispanic immigrant students that are pursuing degrees right now, and that because they're undocumented status, they're having to pay tuition as if they were out of state. So I was wondering, and I wanted to ask the counties if there are talks to maybe revitalize the DREAM Act, or if there are any efforts to, fix this issue. And that's pretty much my question.
Actually, the DREAM Act is one of the few issues in the immigration debate on which we don't have any policy at NACo at this point. There are some other associations that do, but we have been silent on that issue.